Hello! So this is going to be a bit of a different video. What we are going to be doing today is looking at SAD-ist's most recent animated video, The Dawn of the 16th, and we're going to be looking at it from an artist perspective, and we're going to be breaking down the animation, the techniques that are used, some of the different shots, both from as a fan of the Dream SMP, and as an artist. There are some really cool things that she does with a lot of these shots, a lot of these transitions, that if you are looking at it as a typical viewer, or somebody that doesn't go and goes frame by frame with these types of videos, hopefully I can be here to kind of give a little bit of an extra perspective. SAD-ist uses the same animation program that I use, or at least that I've started to use. She uses Toon Boom Harmony. And while she's definitely more versed in the program than me, there are a lot of techniques that she uses that I'm not exactly sure how she does, but there are certain elements in what she does that I have been able to identify, and so I want to kind of show them off today. This isn't a reaction video. This is an analysis. So I'm not going to be watching the full video start to finish. I've already seen the video like hundreds of times by now. So the link down to the full video will be in the description if you want to watch this and follow along. For the most part, I'm going to have the audio muted. You should kind of hear some audio in the background. I'm just kind of going to be looping the song that is from this kind of in the background just to have something back there. This video, or this format, is very similar to, there's a YouTuber, his name's TB Skyen, and he does these kind of breakdowns of League of Legends animations. And so I wanted to do something like that. I really appreciate his content, so I wanted to kind of show off, or I kind of wanted to do something of my own. I hope SAD doesn't mind. If she does, if this is something that bothers her, kind of looking more like kind of scrutinizing into animation, then I will take down the video at a moment's notice. It is not a huge deal. I just really wanted to ramble about this being probably my favorite piece of animation to come out of the fandom, which I think it is most people's favorite video to come out of the fandom. But we'll be going frame by frame for the most part through the animation and through some of the more important or interesting shots. And I'll be giving an artist's perspective on some of the techniques that you might not typically know exist. So yeah, start at the beginning. These shots are pretty typical. We're kind of having establishing shots, starting that build up. Something that SAD-ist uses throughout the course of the animation, and you'll notice this a lot once you look out for it, is these particle effects. So what she's probably doing with these is, we can see, first of all, we can see them moving, right? We can see the shadows moving. But these particle effects, what they likely are is they're on a different layer, and she's using kind of this panning motion that you can use with stuff like Toon Boom to kind of make it pan across the screen. So in addition to moving the camera one way, she moves the particles in a different way. It gives this kind of effect of there being movement, of there kind of more being some life instead of these just being full-on still shots. You know, we see Mars come through, we see the castle, you know, we get this gradient on the side that is, you know, implying a sun, some sort of rising, and that's why we also see in that same direction, if we go back, in the same direction that the gradient is coming in, that's where we also see the lighting, right? The lighting, the gradient is coming in from this side, so we see the lighting against the side of the castle, against the windows on this side, kind of having that consistency. And that lighting leads right into this shot where obviously these windowsills, that lighting is very important for how this shot is framed. We are placed behind Dream. We're placed behind probably what appears to be like a pillar. Looking in on the shot, we're down low. We're even a bit lower than Aerith. Now, we're not on eye level with Aerith, and we're definitely not on eye level with Dream. But what we're establishing here is a bit of a power dynamic, right? Dream is set to be over Aerith. Even though Aerith is king, he's sitting on the throne. But Dream, from a perspective-wise, is standing, and he's placed above Aerith for this shot, kind of showing, as we're hearing in the animatic, or in the animation, Dream talking about how it's him who gives Aerith power, you know, placing himself above Aerith. Even here, we see a height difference. Aerith, once again, is lower. His head, he has a lot of head space up here. He's lower on the shot. He's eye level with us, while Dream is placed ever so slightly above. We don't get a ton of head space with Dream. Dream's placed a lot higher and looking down, again, showing that power dynamic. You know, we get this really cool shadow that obviously makes Dream look a lot more sinister. We get another establishing shot. Something that SAD-ist does a lot as well are these blurs. And something we'll see implemented used a lot more later are lowered opacities for lines to show depth. So obviously this blur shows us some depth. We see Tubbo in frame, we see him in focus, and then obviously Quackity kind of gets put in frame. We once again go back to Dream, again still keeping that power dynamic, still keeping that Dream being taller, being above Aerith in the background, blurred out of focus. Kind of like you see in movies, Aerith comes into focus as the question gets diverted to him. Something really cool that SAD-ist does throughout this whole thing is the lip flaps, the lip animations. She animates lip syncing very, very well throughout this whole thing. I think it is what puts this animation a cut above a lot of the other stuff produced, a lot of the other animatics produced in the community. And it's because she puts a ton of focus onto really making the characters look like they're saying stuff and look like they're saying the lines. And she's very, very good at it. Something she does that most people wouldn't maybe not realize unless you do a lot of lip syncing is she's moving the chin as well while she's doing lips. She's not just moving the mouth up and down. She's taking that chin and she's bouncing it up and down as needed for the voice lines to make sense. So it gives it just that little extra bit of movement to make it feel like he's really talking. Something really, really cool that SAD-ist does throughout the animation is background colors, and she's very good at this. She's been good at this in her past 2 animations that were done with the Dream SMP. She's definitely gotten better. You have a much more consistent color palette throughout this whole thing. The purple, the sunset, it's really, really interesting. This is I believe the first instance we get these sort of lower opacity lines in the background. And the lower opacity, when you take the opacity down on something, you make it more transparent. Now, she takes the lower opacity, she lowers it down, and it adds depth. And she does this not only with backgrounds, but with characters, and that's super important later on for some of the really interesting shots in the fight scenes, because we were able to better understand, our brains are better able to understand where characters are placed in a scene when there's not necessarily a very intricate background. Again, we get these really cool particle effects that come and they float across the screen. Because if you were to take this kind of shot and not have these particle effects, you're just kind of zooming out and unblurring on sort of a random shot. But because we get these particle effects, it adds that little bit of extra depth. So she can get away with not really having much animation on this shot. Like the hand isn't moving, the sword is moving. Obviously this is a dead body, but like the only quote-unquote animation on this shot are these particle effects. But because the shot is fairly short, it's enough. Like we don't need anything more than that. We get Dream and Techno here, and once again, and this is something that she's very good at, these characters aren't being animated right now. These are still frames, but she's quote-unquote animating them because she's moving them, right? They're being moved. You would think that this frame and this frame are different, but they're not. She's simply bringing Dream down and bringing him more forward, and because this is so fast, right, I'm going frame by frame, but if we come back here, because it's so fast and it goes right to this black, right? Between this shot and this shot, these are very different shots. Obviously, we're getting this zoom in onto Techno, but because Dream almost comes kind of forward, kind of close to the camera, when you go through it super fast, and we can see here, this smoke, this is supposed to be Techno smoke, this is supposed to be coming out of his nose. It's actually layered in front of Dream, which is probably some sort of mistake in the layering. However, it doesn't really matter, because when you look at this, it's so fast that you don't even see it. You don't even care. Something also that we get that's really cool is we get these really cool camera shakes. She's very good at doing camera shakes, where we zoom into Techno, we have a camera shake, and that's what we use to transition. It cuts to this really bright background, like Techno's color doesn't change, but the background's color suddenly changes, and then we switch right to Tommy, which I think is very, very cool and looks really good in full animation. So we go to black, And we get this side panning zoom out that I like to look at it as if, even though Tubbo is, we will see in the next shot, looking up at Tommy, the way that the camera shakes kind of very, not unnaturally, but very human. It's not a kind of robotic panning out. It's sort of at this angle. Let's see if we can see it again. Yeah, it zooms out at this angle, and it kind of tilts, and it blurs a little bit, right, as we're looking up to Tommy, and then it swivels around, right? We get a bit of drag on it when it comes around. See, it comes forward and then comes back a bit. It sort of does a bit of a, like, it comes over and then it comes back ever so slightly. And Dream, I love this shot so much, and we'll explain why. So this is once again another cheat, because Dream looks like he's moving forward and he's not. He's not taking any steps. He's not being animated, right? It's a still frame. Let's look at the shot in its entirety as it goes into its transition. That's the shot. We get Dream moving forward, but what we get is, because of the way that she has the movement, because what she does is Dream moves towards the camera, she's taking his body, his character, and she's using like a transform tool to make it bigger. And so it comes closer to the frame on us, and she's doing the exact same things for the particles that are in the background. The particles are moving in the exact same way that Dream does. So we get this really cool looking shot where the background feels like it's moving away from us, Dream feels like he's moving towards us, and because of the pose that he's in, it almost gives us this 3D effect where it looks like he's coming towards us. It looks like he's moving in our direction. And then, this is my favorite transition of the whole thing, we get this really cool inverse shot. And you don't, this shot is one frame. It is a singular frame in the animation. And we get a bit of a camera shake. We get this sort of weird fade. She's probably overlapping something. I think she double Dream's frame, double Dream's character, and then offset it and then blurred it. That's what I'm guessing she did. And obviously also blurred the screen, right? Because this is very clean, and then she blurs it. So when we watch this, we get that tiny little shot of Dream with these really cool colors. This is such, I would love to see this in a high def. Like, I would love to see a high def image of this rather than it being blurred. Because this is super sick. But literally all she does is flip the canvas, and it makes for this really awesome transition from one shot to another. And then now we're here at the Schlatt at the podium. She has so many of these shots where they're on the screen for maybe 2 or 3 frames. But there's so much detail and so much effort put into them, right? We have the chairs that are broken and fallen over. We have the festival flags and decorations that are just sort of in shambles, and this frame is literally here. When you have it in animation, you blink and you'll miss it. And then we get this really, really awesome shot with the crow or the bird, raven, whatever it is, and Phil. I love this transition so much. It is kind of cool because we get the raven goes to the right, and as it goes to the right, Phil's comes out of the left. You know, it kind of the eye gets sort of directed, right? We follow the brightest point, so we follow the eye, which is, you know, this white, this gray. We follow, our eye automatically, subconsciously follows this and follows the body of the raven, and then it instantly flows into Phil. And this is a shot that everybody loves. She posted this on Twitter, but we have the enchanting table, like, flying out of the book. I love this lighting. It's so pretty. We have this gradient lighting, and then the light that lines the book. It adds just so much. This is such a simple effect, yet it looks so, so cool. We have the really, really nice perspective with the bookshelves and stuff in the background. We know exactly where this is in Techno's house. And here we get the smear frame, and SAD-ist loves her smear frames. Most animators do. It adds an extra feeling of movement when things are sped up and you don't even see it. We just, and it's lovely. It's lovely. Now we get to arguably the best shot in the entire video. This panning shot is some of the most this is so impressive, because what we get is this turnaround. We get this panning zoom, or not zoom, but we get this panning shot of the the room. And just to put this in perspective, to be able to do this with a singular character is a nightmare, right? You have to have a very consistent art style to be able to draw your characters multiple times in a slowly panning environment where you're going through the different angles of their face. You're slowly kind of panning through that. At the same time, she's lip syncing each of them individually to their various different sounds in the clip. And she's doing there's like 5 or 6 characters in this scene. It's insane. This is the most impressive thing in this whole animation by far. This shot is so it's more impressive to me than even some of the fight scene stuff we see later on, and that stuff is super crazy. And you also need to be able to keep track of everybody, right? Quackity is way over here, and she has to keep track of where he is. Though I think there is one bit that's kind of funny where I think either I'm wrong and I'm just missing something, but I think there is one point she loses track of Quackity. Also, Quackity's design and animation and poses through this whole thing is so expressive. Look at him go. Look at him. Like, oh, it's so cute. It's so cute. He walks in with so much excitement. Also, as a note, there's a lot of stuff like this, especially we'll see in the fight scenes, where there's just lines that never get kind of finished. This is probably, first of all, due to time constraints, I think. But what SAD-ist does, because SAD-ist doesn't seem to color, right? She doesn't really color her characters that much. Their color, you see how this is like a gradient. The characters are just kind of line art. This probably to save her time. I am more than willing to bet. But what she's probably has is she has Techno on a different layer. So instead of having him fully drawn out here, and she has to then color Tubbo, right, to not overlap, to not have Techno overlap, she probably just erases the parts that would overlap, and she just over erases, because when you're watching the animation as a full thing, you don't notice that part, right? See, we see it here with Quackity. She probably saw that it was overlapping, so she just erased it. So we'll never really know, but that's my guess on what she's doing. As I was saying, she loses Quackity, I'm pretty sure, here. So we have Techno walks forward. Quackity disappears, right? Because Quackity technically should be behind Techno. So I'm going to kind of track with my mouse where he should be. If we're assuming he's still behind Techno, then he has to be over here somewhere, right? Because we haven't seen him pop up anywhere. He would have to be over here. He'd have to be over... Oh! Wait a minute. When did he get behind Tubbo? When did he get behind Tubbo? So, if Quackity's here, he never moves behind Tubbo. So we have to assume that he's behind Techno. And then there's just a moment where he suddenly pops up over here. So it's kind of funny. She does lose position of Quackity. And unless I'm missing something, that's just amusing. But yeah, it's hard to keep track when you have so many characters in one area. And it makes sense to have Quackity here, right? Because it does really well, especially later in the framing. It shows you the depth of the room. We get Wilbur circling, we get Tommy circling, and they're all, if you watch all of them in this shot, they're all voice line, they're all lip syncing. Right? Tommy, I think, says something. You know, if we watch Tommy, he's agape, but he also, yeah, his mouth moves up and down. He's saying a voice line during then. Then we get a cool zoom in to Techno. We get the falling particles, as always, because the particles, SAD-ist loves her particles. We get Tubbo running with the emeralds. I love this shot so much. We get Tubbo running with the emeralds. We get Nikki. And while we're here, I love Nikki's character design. I love every character design in this beautiful piece of animation. I think that SAD-ist does such a great job at expressing what she needs with these characters. I think Fundy's design is so simple but just so perfect for the kind of character he is. And she doesn't go crazy. The only character design that may be a bit much is Techno's, arguably, right? Because the mask is quite detailed, and the mixture of the mask and the armor. Let's get a look at Techno. This is a fairly complex character design. If we're comparing all of the characters in a line, Techno, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm not thinking of a character, maybe Tubbo with all of his scars and band-aids might match up on the same level, but those two, I would think, from what I remember, are probably the most complex character designs, and understandably so. Techno is a cool character. It makes sense for him to have this really cool, imposing, the mask and the cape, right? All of it fits. And the armor and all that. Then we get to characters like Fundy, who are just very simple, and it's kind of cool. I like seeing the different dynamics between the character designs. We get Tubbo running with the emeralds. This is cool. I love this. We get this gradient running up the blade, obviously showing off the lighting. Once again, we're seeing that same technique where, or that same, I guess, quirk of SAD-ist, where she's just erasing the lines that might overlap. And because, again, it's moving by so fast, you don't really notice. We get this really, really cool gradient that runs up the line of the sword, showing off the lighting. It's so, so sick. I love it so much. It's such a nice way to express it. We get the really nice, like, throwing it over to Tommy. We get smear frames, beautiful smear frames. 1 smear frame, 2 smear frame. It's literally just a line. And then, boom! Let's watch it, let's watch it. In fact, let's watch from here all the way through. So we have the spinning shot. We have the zoom in. Ooh, wait, let's look at that. Let's look at that. Look at Techno's cape. Look at Techno's little cowl. I didn't notice that. Yeah, look at his little cape move. Look at his little cape move. Oh, that's such a flourish. That's like, it's almost a flex at that point to just animate that cape. Like, you're not gonna really notice it, you know, but it adds just a little extra movement in the scene. Oh, and then we have the zoom in. Oh, that's so good. Oh my gosh, she's so talented. She's so gifted. Not just gifted. She's just freaking good. She worked her butt off to get to this point. Passing the sword, boom, transition. I love the characters. I love all of them. And then also kind of little note that's just, you know, attention to detail. Eric doesn't have his crown anymore because he's not king anymore. We get shots of each side. Really great shot. Followed by another really great shot. Quackity's oh my god. This pose is beautiful. I think it's a reference to his like bazinga pose from the Dre SMP animation that she did. Badlands boys. Once again, amazing character design. Simple. Let's talk about this shot. The slamming hand against the wall. We get a really nice smear frame. Slams into the wall. At the same instant that it that he slams it into the wall, we get the camera shake. So it feels like the room is shaking, right? We get the shake, boom, and it slams in. We get a really quick transition where it pulls back, and we're looking at his arm, and then the cleanest lip sync in the whole thing, which I'm not gonna try to go through and break it down, but you can watch. Like, look at that. I was kind of pausing to interrupt a little bit. Let's just watch that lip sync. Look at that. Wow. And once again, we're also seeing here that chin movement. Look at how when Wilbert talks and his mouth kind of is brought forward a bit, it's not even the chin moving down. It's literally this bit here kind of moves. This bit moves forward. Oh, that's such a nice detail. Yeah, look, it goes in like a little bit of a U, right? It's back here, and then down, and then over. Oh man, and then back down again. That's so good. And then we're avoiding the elephant in the room, or the bird in the room at this point. The crow feathers, the fallen angel dynamic, where we have kind of a bit of symbolism here, where the angel wings are also sort of on Wilbur at this point, because he's like a fallen angel, you know, falling from grace, clicking the button, and then it transitions, boom, into Filza. This is the best moment. Oh my god. The other moment was the best moment, but this is like, oh my goodness. And here, this is actually a very good backing theory to my previous point. She's definitely not coloring in these characters. This is purely line art on a layer. There's no color fill. So she's probably using some sort of white, maybe a white soft brush, or some sort of soft eraser brush or something. Or maybe yeah, I'm gonna guess this is a white, or this is a soft eraser, to once again show depth, but also just to clear out the lines from where Will's body is. It could also be a white soft brush. I'm not sure. It's either that. It's one or the other. We also get another example here of low opacity background lines, right? I don't think that this is in a different color. This is just a lower opacity for the arch. And again, clipping through the wing, but it's fine because nobody notices, right? So, but the wing transition is super sick, right? It folds into, I love Filza's character design, I think everybody does. The very sudden mood change by just removing the feathers too and going straight into a red background. I'm guessing that all of her backgrounds are using color cards. And color cards have this cool thing where you can add keyframes. So this keyframe is white, and then a couple keyframes down, this is probably the first frame that she has where it's the proper color she wants. And so Toon Boom will automatically kind of gradient over or transition over to that specific color that you want. So that's probably what she's having here. And then probably another keyframe for a darker background when it goes into this shot. We get the zoom in, we get the scratchy lines that she's had in some of her other animations before. This is fairly used by her in some of her other things to kind of show a bit more intensity to the shot. Oh, and then also you can kind of see, where is it? He has this, he has a little bit of spit, I think. Did I just see that? Is that what I saw? Yeah, look at that. Adding to that aggression, that sheer aggression in his voice. You get a little bit of that spit. That kind of gives it that extra bit of, oh, look at this shot. It's so good. Ooh, and did we see that there? Seeing that little, it glows up and then it goes back down before the transition into the next shot. It kind of flashes the colors. Ooh, that's so nice. Then we're at the railway or the bridge to Manberg. We zoom into it, and then I'm pretty sure, was that color? Yeah. So the color she uses to transition into the fireworks shot, she uses red, blue, and then white, which are the colors of the fireworks. That's really clever. I didn't see that before. Boom. And then this shot is a reference to the shot in her first SMP War animatic. Or at least it's a very good parallel. If it wasn't intentional, I'd be surprised, but I'm pretty sure it's intentional. I'll put a little screenshot of it on the screen in case you don't remember which one. But this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot that parallels the other one. And it's cool because you can obviously see SAD-ist's improvement as well when it comes to animatic, going from that one to this one. We get this lovely shot of Carl being bodied. Oh, man. Man's got slammed. And we get this cool smear frame. Smear, hand, slam. Oh, it's so good. When you have the frame where Carl is just a blob, that, like, this is Techno's hand. He is getting thrown. And again, we get that smoke. That's this lower opacity, right? Slammed into the ground, the poor guy. If you're watching the animation, the crossbow shot, boom, lines up with the music beautifully. We have these moments where Techno kind of pans across the screen. This is fairly easy. That's fairly easy to do in Toon Boom, where you can kind of have the characters pan around and move around with keyframes and such using like pegs, which I'm guessing is what she does. Tubbo being trigger happy. Oh, it's so great. Again, we get a couple smear frames. It lines up with the music. This is what I wanted to talk about. This is what I wanted to talk about. Tubbo, moving backwards, becomes lower opacity. The lines become lower opacity when he goes to the background. And it's showing depth because now Tommy moves forward, right? I think. Yeah, look. Tommy, lower opacity lines. When Tommy moves forward, he becomes full opacity. Tubbo becomes partial opacity because it fits with the background opacity. And it gives us that depth. It gives us it. Now, if those were full opacity, would we be able to tell that they're moving, they're turning like that? Probably. Does adding the lower opacity add so much more to it? God, yes. Look at that. Ready? Whew, he's moving into the background. And really cool shot, we get a smear frame. Or not a smear frame. I don't know what these are called. I think they're called, I want to say they're called impact frames. But we get a smear frame. We get, I'm going to call an impact frame. And then we are right at the shot with Dream. Tommy swinging back up. It feels like the camera is attached to the sword here, right? Because we're moving with the sword. And like Tommy is bringing the sword forward at this moment, and we're going with it, and we're like right on top of it when it slams into Dream. We get a shot of Schlatt zooming into his face. Let's just watch that fight sequence to kind of show. Boom, syncs with the music, panning, Tubbo, crossbow, opacity, zoom. And it's crazy, this zoom to Schlatt is so fast, especially this frame. This frame is beautiful, by the way, like the shoe in the perspective. We see it on frame for like 3 seconds. You blink and you miss that frame. The fact that SAD-ist goes out of her way to make these frames that are super polished and pretty, even though you'll literally only see them for maybe like half a second, is so commendable. Schlatt getting up. I love Schlatt's design so much because he looks unhinged. Like, he looks like an alcoholic that you saw outside of the Walgreens at like 4 a.m., right? You can tell that that man has been through so much. And again, the lip syncing is amazing. This shot is so cool. We get like the line, the thickness of the lines go down. Right? You get these super thin lines. This looks right out of an anime. Look at these, look at the chin, look at this. We get these super thin lines, and then the coming down the slam, we get this eye like lighting, like it adds extra movement. Slams down into Fundy. Oh man. I'm kind of curious why she brought the line depth down. It adds this extra like impact. It shows sort of somebody on my Discord had a theory that the thinning lines showed Schlatt's like fragileness and how, you know, through this he's slowly becoming more and more frail, and it kind of reflects that. And I think that's a great way to think about it. Slams into Fundy. I love the animation of the bottle breaking. We get again an impact frame, and boom, it shatters. We watch Schlatt's arm go down, like follow through with it. The glass shatters, he pulls back, and Fundy pulls his arm back, and we get sort of those smear frames down at the bottom with him after the impact. Amazing lip sync, amazing character animation. I love his ears follow through with everything, because obviously Fundy doesn't have hair, but his ears follow through. His ears kind of, you see that one? They bounce with his mouth. Let's watch this character animation again. Boop. They kind of flick around. This shot's great. Schlatt clutching his chest, falls to the ground. We get a bit of a bounce on his hand. That kind of gives a bit of extra life. We get long boys. We get tall boys. I'm kind of curious, because obviously these are drawn this way for perspective, but this is very exaggerated, their height. I'm curious. I'm not as experienced with perspective, but I think that I would have made the shoes or the feet a bit bigger and brought them a bit closer to the camera to show the depth more, instead of making them so tall, because they are both just like very, very, very tall and long here. And I think it looks, in my personal opinion, it looks just a little bit off, but we also see this shot for, again, only 5 frames. So they're not on screen that long. It doesn't really matter, because the point of the shot is Schlatt's hand and Schlatt falling to the ground. So, but I am curious her design choices when it comes to having them so tall. Then we get these very quick flashes of President Tubbo, Techno being betrayed. Techno wasn't the traitor. I'm a Techno apologist. Techno didn't do anything wrong. They used him and then elected a government in front of him after his whole purpose was to take down the government. He did nothing wrong. Not to get political in my analysis video, but I am a Techno apologist. Even in the current arc, he was in the right. Anywho, back to talking about the animation. We get the smoke. I think it goes from a higher opacity to a lower opacity. Does it? Yeah. Notice how the smoke as it goes away. First of all, Quackity comes into focus because his opacity goes up, and then the opacity of the smoke goes down because it's showing that it's moving further away. It's fading. Techno coming in. We get a smear frame with the trident. We see some really cool shots with Techno. This is a really cool action kind of movement. The trident, or the smear frames coming into the trident. We get this interesting thing where the camera blurs for like a split second. You see that blur? Let's go back a couple frames. It blurs, and then it focuses back in. I'm curious why she does that, but it adds a little bit of depth. It adds a little bit of interest to the shot, so I'm not going to complain. Hey, it looks cool, and we're all about looking cool in this house. This shot's great. SAD-ist posted on Twitter kind of asking for advice on perspective, but you can definitely see the improvement from that to this. I love how even in this shot where Techno isn't even like the main point of the frame, right? Like Techno, like when you're looking at the shot, you're looking at Tubbo, but notice Techno is still there's still lip syncing. She's still animating the mouth of Technoblade, even though he's this tiny little thing in the corner. That's crazy. I would have just left the mouth open and been on with it, because you're not even focusing on Techno at this point. You're focusing on Tubbo. But she still goes out of her way to animate the lips, and that's just so commendable. I love how one of his eyes close as the crossbow kind of gestures, probably is like now touching his skull, right? It kind of pressures and pushes into his head, and he shuts his eyes on that side. Then we get this dope running animation from Tommy. Let's watch it fully through before I pause. Look at that. I can actually, I just realized that I can slow things down. So let's slow things down. Look at that. Look at that. And we get the swing to transition into the next shot. I just love, like, this, again, this is straight out of an anime. I wonder if she used a reference from an anime to draw this properly. Look at that. Look at that leg way back there while this one comes forward. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Coming forward, slashing, jumping up, slam down into Techno, trying to get to Techno. Techno sweeps under Tommy's feet. A smear frame to help with that. I wonder why. Ooh, she has the screen flash white in addition with the smear frame. Interesting. Almost like the camera got covered in like dust because it was so close to the ground, and then it fades back, or it clips back, and we're seeing Tommy. Tommy slams into the ground, and then we get Techno pig step. Oh, into Tommy. Smear frame. Tommy's expression is exaggerated so much. You see how big his mouth is, but it makes sense because he's literally, he got the air knocked out of him, the wind knocked out of him. I love this shot. Tubbo grabbing the crossbow. This, for some reason, this frame really reminds me of My Hero Academia for whatever reason. I mean, obviously SAD-ist art style is fairly similar to anime, like it's very anime inspired, but this shot, just the way that the eyes are, very much reminds me of My Hero Academia for some reason. They walk back. We get a smear frame, and notice how the impact showing the smear frame, this is Tubbo's outline, right? This is Tubbo's head, this is Tubbo's arm. The impact is coming out of the crossbow. So it's showing that this is the moment that the crossbow shoots. And then we see Techno getting shot. We get an impact frame there, right? And once again, the outline is around Technoblade. Boom. Smoke. We get a lot of really nice smoke animation here of it, like almost like being coming out from like inward, right? Like if the crossbow bolt hit Techno and it's exploding outward, we get these kind of cool like curved lines, and then it compresses inward and then exhales outward. And then Techno obviously cutting through it and spinning to find Funny and Quackity going after him. Darkens around and then comes to the side, and we see Phil with Wilbur. We get a couple flashes and it transitions. Just another interesting way to transition the shot. And then the reason I'm pretty sure the reason why she does this is because it's almost like the camera is coming behind the characters. It almost feels like we're behind somebody's back right now. And then we look around their shoulder and Techno's there. Same thing here, right? Somebody is maybe moving next to Techno or moving in front of Techno, and then it transitions into Wilbur. Like we could even think that this is going from somebody behind Techno or in front of Techno to Phil being next to Wilbur and looking over at Wilbur. Aerith transitioning, obviously, and this is a shot everybody sees. Aerith transitioning into Wilbur because that's the analogy. Also, really cool. I wrote this down in my notes. I love how Techno, the line that Techno is talking about here is he's saying, like, don't you see history repeating itself? And it transitions right into Wilbur, because Wilbur is the perfect parallel, the perfect example of history repeating itself. It's so good that whole You know, like, obviously we all know the connection between Wilbur and Arrow. We all know that parallel, right? Like, that's not a hidden secret. But the fact that SAD-ist has their two shots, like, reflect on each other, like Techno talking about that line and then transitioning to Wilbur, it's so good. It's so good. We get a lot of camera shakes and blurs. We get this really cool wing shot of Phil's wing coming up. And then most people know this by now, but if you're not, if you either don't go on Twitter a ton or you don't go frame by frame, you might not see it. Wilbur doing the classic saluting pose that both he did, Eric did, and now Nikki did, spoilers, when she burns down the Laman tree. Wilbur pushing the button. This is what I'm talking about. So Wilbur pushes the button. We see Phil reach towards Wilbur, and he shields Wilbur with his wings. He shields it with the explosion. Watch where the explosion happens, and it happens, the impact frame is around the outline of the wing. And then the smoke puffs out. Tommy is shocked. Then, when we next see Phil's wing, it looks bad. It's injured because he used, look at that, man. He used his wings to, oh, look at that. He used his wings to protect Wilbur. If you don't see those like 3 frames or something before the explosion, you won't notice. Unless you notice and you're like, wait, why are his wings broken? We get a cool shot of Tubbo. We get an awesome shot of Dream with some of the only color that's like on characters in the animation, and it's the black and red Manberg flag, right? Like, because of the lack of color on things up until this point, this leaves such an impact, and it obviously your eyes instantly focus on it because it has such a high contrast. It's so impactful. Same thing with the skull, right? Once again, we're getting an object and then the fingers that are colored, right? Like, this is one of the few moments where we have a colored thing that isn't a background on screen, and it draws your attention instantly with the high contrast. We get a shot with everybody in the background. I love the use of the color gradient here. I love the gradients so much. The gradients that she uses are so nice, and let's go through these last shots frame by frame. I'm kind of confused on which shot this actually is, or what moment this is actually from, because I'm gonna guess that this is Tommy giving Tubbo the disc initially, but that was like way back. That was when Wilbur was initially going insane. So it wouldn't exactly match up with the timeline, because the next shot is Tubbo putting on the president garb and then like George being like, it doesn't match with the rest of the timeline of the animation. So I wonder if this is a different moment that I'm just not remembering. Feel free to leave it in the comments and let me know, because I'm curious what this is from, because there was no other moment where a disc got passed on. So yeah, so if it is from that moment, then that's fine. Like, it's just a bit out of the order of the timeline, but hey, it doesn't matter that much. It's fine. We get a shot of Tubbo putting on the president garb. Oh, it's so good as he's coming up. We have the new flags in the background, right? These are the new Lamanberg flags with the hearts. We get a shot of George on the throne with Callahan and Dream. George looking a lot more confident on that throne than he really should be, because he got dethroned like the next day. We get Rambo and Connor and Puffy. I love Puffy's character design so much. It's out of focus. I wish that she had a frame where they were in focus, partially so I could use a screen cap of Puffy's face as a profile picture in Discord. But so be it. It's fine. But Rambo's in focus, and this is important because Rambo is, if you're following the more recent streams, is becoming more of a major character, becoming more of an important dude. So yeah, and we see Connor and oh, it's just so good. Zooms in, and Rambo's design looks ominous. Like, it reminds me of Schlatt in the first animatic, how that design kind of popped up on screen, and it was kind of like, ooh, who was that? We see this heartbreaking shot of Phil clutching, like, see the lines, the fabric lines of Phil holding the body and crying, and then Wilbur is dead in this shot. Like, we see the broken wings. This is Wilbur's corpse. Look at those eyes. Those eyes are out. They're so scratched up and so long gone. We know that typically when artists scratch out eyes like that, it's like almost to show Or it kind of depends on the art style, but typically, at least in SAD-ist animatics, but this is like dead. These are dead eyes here. We see very much dead. Wilbur's legs are splayed out to the side while Phyllis is splayed out to the other. We see the ruins, we see the broken wing. We see the final shot. Techno's head pops out from the bottom as a way to transition into the next shot, which I think is, I really like this transition. I don't know why. It doesn't really make sense because obviously Techno was in front of this area when that actually happened, but for the sake of animation, it's a very, very interesting and awesome transition. Techno pulling back, saying the line, the withers come out, and once again, these are colored. These are one of the few objects that are colored. They slowly, the colors behind the wither slowly grow. That's such a cool detail. How when they come up, they slowly fade in with color, and then boom, transition, dawn of the 16th, boom. We get the wind picks up the particles in a specific direction, and they slide by, and then the grass moves in that same direction as it transitions and zooms out, and we see its shot of the Leman tree. So well done, this whole thing. Absolutely beautifully done by SAD-ist. Her style, her techniques, her everything is just absolutely immaculate. That was kind of my breakdown slash it turned mostly into rambling. But that was my breakdown of the SAD-ist animatic. I have no idea how long this video is. But yeah, if you enjoyed listening to me ramble about SAD-ist, feel free to, first of all, check out the original animation. It's probably on screen as an end card. If you liked my rambling, I don't really do these types of videos, but I do animation. I do, not necessarily animation, but I do animatics on the Dream SMP. Feel free to check out my channel. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, please subscribe, and leave a comment if there was anything that I missed that you liked about the animation. We have a lovely day, and this is Chris signing off.